Naka, thank you, Sharon. Bulabunaka, everybody, and welcome to this opportunity to have a good Talanoa session about what are the prospects and the exciting opportunities to set up in Fiji. Special welcome to all of those who are dialing in from Australia. I think kia ora, one from New Zealand, Samantha, our Trade Commissioner in the US. I can see has dialed in, as well as our Trade Commission in Sydney. So thank you. What I want to do is just to take you very briefly about very high level, the opportunity, really starting with who we are as Investment Fiji and what are some of the, I guess, the reasons why, that you should consider coming to Fiji and setting up. Just probably to put it into perspective, who are Investment Fiji? Essentially, we're the marketing arm of the Fijian government. So if you're in Australia, we're Austrade, and if you're in New Zealand, Samantha, we're New Zealand Trade and Enterprise. So our purpose is twofold, really to increase the success of Fijian businesses globally from a trade perspective, and to match high-value capital investment opportunities, whether that be financial or technological or human capital, with Fijian businesses and opportunities. So we're really judged on two key areas. One is trade revenue and investment outcomes. And so currently we focus on three key functions. One is export promotion, which you could understand it's quite challenging at these times. And investment matching and also facilitation. So we do the hand-holding once you've established here in Fiji. We're kind of your go-to to walk you through the forest during your investment cycle. Just quickly for in terms of, probably because of your proximity to the Pacific, it's old news to most of you, but Fiji, we've only about 360 islands. We've got 18,000 square kilometers of landmass, but 1.3 million square kilometers of EEZ. So we're truly a blue ocean state. One of the strengths we do have is our geographic position. So we are well placed right in the heart of the Southwest Pacific, and we ain't moving. So that's the good thing. We have and have had for a number of years, because of our geographic position, very good trading lanes. So when the borders are open, we have really good shipping connectivity. And whilst this may not seem relevant, it does give some perspective, even though we're talking about BPO. We have shipping out of Australia. We have very frequent shipping out of Australia, 2 to 3 times a month, out of Southeast Asia. We've got CMA, Swire. There's a number of carriers that come out of Southeast Asia. We've got the Pacific Loop. So a lot of the product gets transshipped out of Auckland into Fiji, and then we punch it out into Polynesia and other parts of Melanesia. And in terms of connectivity to North America, we've got the Northwest America line. So in terms of a shipping perspective, and that's probably why you've seen Fiji grow as a country, as an economy over the last 200 years, because of our geographic position. But in terms of air connectivity, which is really important too, we have, when the borders are open, our national airline, we have daily connectivity into Australia, into New Zealand, into Asia. And also into the Americas. So in terms of your ability to drop people in and take them out, that's not an issue when the borders are open. Just quickly in figures, if you haven't done the Google search already, we have a very young population here in Fiji, and I think that's a really important thing to note. Is if you're looking to set up an operation in Fiji, you've got currently around about 50% of our population under the age of 25, with a very high literacy rate. So you've got a population that can actually grow organically with your organization as you move through and progress through your investment opportunity here. We're around about 390,000 in terms of the labor force. Obviously, we had in addition to that, with COVID, we've had obviously 40% of our GDP currently is dependent on the tourism sector. So we've got a bit of supply capacity now in terms of the labor force. Again, very high level reasons why you should invest in Fiji, but through Sharon, I'm here to discuss these in detail with you. Should you want a one-on-one conversation about any of these any of these, I guess, things that specific areas that you want to discuss in detail. But really, in terms of, firstly, I guess, IT connectivity, and I have sitting beside me Ritesh Singh, the Managing Director for Pacific Operations, and Chief Ops Officer for the Pacific for ANZ. So there's a reason probably why they have an operation here in Fiji. But our connectivity, we have one of the fastest and most secure connectivity links to NZ in Australia via the Southern Cross Cable. So that's something that is exciting. We also we have present someone from Digicel who will join in the Q&A. So if there's any other questions around that in terms, and also some of the human capital aspects of why they've sent it here, we've got that to share with you this afternoon. In terms of, we're very tax friendly in terms of our corporate tax rate at 20%. If you're listing on the South Pacific Stock Exchange, we're at 10%. For corporate tax rate. I've talked about the shipping and the air connectivity, access to our other Pan-Pacific markets. Obviously, that connectivity is an advantage. We have a very well-educated workforce, and I think for those operators that are already here can attest to that. We have a number of tax-free zones around Fiji to entice investments, and duty concessions on the importation of raw materials and capital goods. And in fact, you'll see my final slide in the Fiji government budget of August this year. Essentially, there is a number of items that have duty concession down to zero. So it obviously reduces your input costs if you're setting up here in Fiji. In terms of the BPO industry, and I won't steal the thunder of Manoa and the others who will potentially talk about this, but the BPO Council, just quickly, in 2018, the council was established to create the awareness of Fiji as a world-class BPO destination. And it's currently made up of 14 organizations. Currently, there's 3,000 Fijians employed within the sector, contributes around 70 million in foreign exchange. So it's an important sector for us. 11 of those operate here out of Suva, of those BPOs. But in terms of business models, traditional outsourcing is more apparent at the moment. But Fiji can also cater for co-sourcing, staff leasing, and even working from home. There is a very strong drive from the Fijian government to increase our participation in the BPO market and aiming to get 10,000 Fijians employed within this sector. In terms of those who are currently operating here in Fiji, we've got Mindpearl, ANZ Pacific Ops, and we've obviously got Ritesh here, Pacific Centrecom, Pack Leader, BTR, Greymouth, DHL, Recoveries Corp, Star Global Solutions, Spark by Technologies, Supercharged Energy. We currently have a capacity of just over 4,500 seats, so there is some supply at the moment. And here's a list of kind of services that we are currently offering in the space: customer service, airline res, back office admin support, accounting, bookkeeping, data entry, debt collection, help desk services support, software support, web development, graphic design, telemarketing, social media, and web marketing. And we do offer that in multiple languages as well. Again, so what is our value proposition? Why come to Fiji? We do have a reliable IT infrastructure. We have a very strong service culture. The tax incentives are quite, quite attractive. In terms of our English speaking, well, apart from me and my New Zealand accent, most people in Fiji have a very neutral accent. Obviously, our proximity to Australia and New Zealand and daily flights when we're operating to Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch. You have obviously a capacity in terms of human capital, availability of a skilled workforce, and relatively low operational costs compared to Australian and New Zealand markets. Again, some other things that kind of add to the value proposition for Fiji: 95% of our population have access to 3G and 4G technologies. We have Manoa from the Lyndhurst group of companies who are currently working on the development of a business park at the Colombo tax-free zone, and we see that really as really forging forward, and that'll really help Fiji position itself as a BPO destination of choice in the region. And in 2014, Fiji won the European Outsourcing EOA Awards of the Offshoring Destination of the Year. I know we've got a lot of decision makers. So what I want to do is just share some of the costs with you that'll allow you to do some quick sums in your head. In terms of your operating costs, there are obviously some legal fees. Your registration fees will probably, anywhere between 5 to 10,000 here in Fiji. Currently, our super scheme, our superannuation, it's 5% employer contribution. FNU levy, which is a university levy, is 1% of total gross enrollments. Our utilities, so our electricity is 45 cents per kilowatt. So regionally, that's quite competitive. Commercial rent, averaging around about $24 per square metre. There's some capacity in Suva at the moment in the CBD, so I'm sure that that can be negotiable. We gave a bit of an idea in terms of the lease of an executive vehicle, because vehicles are a bit more expensive here in Fiji than they are in Australia and New Zealand. There's a figure there around voice calls, telecommunication, and I've given you the corporate tax rate, VAT at 9% here in Fiji. Just in terms of some of the comparisons in terms of wages, just to, I guess, help you explore this and unpack this a bit better. So if you can see Fiji in the first column, you're getting significant savings for the quality of our human capital. If you look at a call centre worker, you're looking at around Australian 6,500 versus in Australia 45 or 40 in New Zealand. And that goes right down through each of those contributors to the organisation. So there is significant savings to be made in terms of setting up your operation here, particularly with a human capital expert. And just probably as a conversation starter too, cost of living comparison, which gives you an idea that there is some savings here in Fiji at the moment. The other thing to say is this will be updated, obviously, with a lot of our imported. I mean, we're an import-driven economy at the moment, with the majority of our products being imported out of Southeast Asia. With those being zero rated now, the cost of living has, particularly in terms of consumers for your workers, your consumer goods have reduced drastically. For those of you who have come to Fiji for a holiday and you see, you go to a resort and you kind of maybe balk at the cost of a beer, all those kind of import tariffs and excises have been zeroed down. So when the borders do open and you bring your family and friends, you'll see a significant difference. In terms of our response to COVID, and this is something that Sharon wanted us to share with you, I'm very, very proud to be here in Fiji. The Fijian government with very strong and robust leadership, we've now had 200 days without any community transmission of COVID. So we're ready, and we've been ready for a while. The government, obviously, with our economy very focused and dependent on tourism, had to revisit on how we get through the next period of time. So the budget, if you do Google the Fijian government budget for in August of this year, there's a number of tax reform designed to stimulate growth across all sectors. And some of them are put up on the screen in front of you. But yeah, it was a budget designed to stimulate activity. In terms of other key measures to contain COVID, we as I said, with 200 days of being without any community transmission, I think I know talking to some of the diplomatic circles here that there are people in the region looking at Fiji on how we did it. Things that have worked for us is still maintaining a nationwide curfew from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. To restrict movement. Still, we have no activity in terms of nightclubs. But at the time when we did have the community transmission, we had one in Lautoka, we had a cluster in Suva, and a lockdown in Suva for a little while, for about a month, I think it was, and a small transmission in Lambasa. But essentially, for a long period of time, there's no contact sports were allowed. Since March up until, I think, about 8 weeks ago, there was no gathering in religious places of worship. But now we're down to 50% capacity and all those. So, I think it's a really good testament to the leadership, particularly at the top level of Fiji, and then in our health with the minister and the permanent secretary for health have really been fundamental in our battle against COVID. And I'll probably leave it there. Now our battle is getting us back economically, going from recovery to sustainability, and we see BPO as a really critical part of us moving and broadening our economic base away purely from tourism. So I hope that whet the appetite for some of those that are viewing today. As I've shared before through Sharon, more than happy to take phone calls from anyone if you want to navigate in any of these in detail. So I'll probably at this point pass you back to Sharon. Vinaka.